We're here today with UC President Janet Napolitano. It's really our privilege and thrill that you're here with us. Talking about leadership, you have an incredibly complex job. You've always had incredibly complex jobs with many, many constituencies, many more than the corporate world would have. How do you deal with the number of constituencies and prioritize among them?
Well, sometimes it's not a matter of priority. They all have a seat at the table, so to speak, and it's really a matter of organization and outreach. And in this position, I've got the regents, I've got the chancellors, I've got faculty, students, staff, but beyond that, you have kind of the meta universe, Sacramento, Washington, D.C., and the people of California. This is their university, so building that connection with them. And I have to keep all of those things in mind at the same time.
And they all take your time equally? Are there ones that you say, how do you analyze which of those will in fact cause more losses, more concerns to the university?
Not in terms of losses, but in terms of the operation of the university. The chancellors are such key players. I mean, they run the campuses. My job is to have and manage the infrastructure that empowers them to do that and helps find the resources to enable them to do that. So that's a key I wouldn't call it a constituency, a key group of colleagues that I work with on a very regular basis.
Governor, Homeland Security Secretary, head of UC, you parachute into these complex organizations. How do you create understanding and trust? What do you have to do as kind of dropping into these enterprises to do that?
You have to have a good parachute. Yeah. And it's a cliche, but it's a cliche with me. You have to listen first. So I've been very careful at each of these jobs to meet with career employees, to meet with, I went from campus to campus to campus on a true listening tour. And in each campus meet with the students and the staff and the faculty and the administrative leadership and alums and people in the greater community, just trying to get a sense of what's going on. I speak with my predecessor. He's the one most immediately in my chair. He has some valuable wisdom to impart. And I did that when I was secretary and when I was governor, even though my predecessors were of other political parties. At a certain point, you're just people that are doing the same job. So there's lessons learned there. And as you're listening, you are also formulating, and you're really beginning to think, all right, what is it that needs to be done soon? What is it that's long-term? And what are some larger visions that should be created around the university?
People talk about stamina and physical energy as a key component of leadership. You've been in jobs where crisis is the norm. Mm-hmm. There's a crisis a day of some kind. When you list your schedule, it is a 24/7 schedule. There are no weekends. You're always. How do you manage yourself to be fresh, to be crisp, to not burn out in these very high velocity jobs?
To be honest, sometimes you're better than others. There are times when you've just been really, burning the candle at both ends, and it's one crisis after another crisis after another crisis, et cetera. And by the time you get to Friday night, it's like, oh my Lord, and yet you have a Saturday morning event to get to. I think there are a few things I've picked up along the way. One is you have to be able to compartmentalize. You have to be able to define what's a true crisis from what is a manufactured crisis. You have to take care of yourself. You have to, I like to say, you have to plan your leisure. Otherwise, all you end up doing is, sitting on the couch and watching TV. But you have to give your brain a place to look at something different, hear something different, just really refresh itself. One of the things I do is I try to read an hour every night before I go to sleep. Fiction, nonfiction, I usually have a couple books going at the same time, but not work related. And it's by design. It's so that I give my brain a chance to think about something other than the job.
As a leader with these diverse constituencies, you're really always negotiating. You're always causing negotiation, catalyzing the negotiation, deciding on the negotiation. What are the skill sets that you've learned over all these incredible positions you've had, the core skill set you believe makes for a good negotiator?
I think a couple things. One is you have to understand who you're negotiating with and what their motivations are, and put yourself in their shoes. Anticipate what are their go-home issues, and you have to know what your go-home issues are. And then there's going to be a set of issues that are, those that, you might want to split some things. Well, you can do this and I'll do this. That's sort of aspect. The other thing is, you can't enter a negotiation too desperate to reach a deal. If it's not going well and the other side's not bending, it's time to just say, you know what, another day, another time, but we're just not going to do that.
That's an interesting comment. In a crisis, a real crisis, where you have to come to a fundamental decision, even though those forces aren't aligned, like you say, are you able to bend sufficiently, so because for the greater good, you've got to make this decision now? Are you able to, or do you feel that you're going to, literally stay the course and not bend? Which is the course that you or both?
Well, let's talk about bending, because bending is a matter of perception.
Right.
I always know what my go-home issue is and what I need to get out of a negotiation. That may allow me to be flexible on some other issues. I don't consider that bending. I just consider it as kind of playing your cards. Right. And how the other side perceives it as bending, so they think it's a win for them, all the better.
So you don't out to beat them, you're out to get the result you want.
That's right. And that's where, like I said, I start thinking about, well, what is it they need? Right. What is likely to be their key issue or issues, and having a firm knowledge of what mine are. But even in a tight negotiation, I haven't ever been hesitant, either myself if I'm at the table or if my team's at the table, if it's going south, just to say, you know what, break. This isn't going anywhere.
So when one reads your record, it seems like you were born a success. In high school, voted the most likely to succeed. You were the first female valedictorian at your college. You were so young when you first became governor in a rather Republican state, and twice elected governor. It seems like you've had just from early on the signs of leadership. What is it about you that makes you such a natural leader?
First of all, I don't think anyone is born a natural leader per se. But I do think there are characteristics of leaders. They differ somewhat. I mean, I believe people want to feel like they're part of something, and they like to feel part of something that's bigger than themselves. And a leader has to help create that vision. What is the larger something that we are part of? And help people recognize that no matter what job they're performing, they can be a worker in the cafeteria. They have a role in helping the UC succeed, or the Department of Homeland Security, or the state of Arizona. And I think the leader, as opposed to a manager, the leader helps create that larger vision. And then you've got to have the courage of your convictions, because people will criticize it, they'll second guess it, they'll try to undercut it, etc. You've got to have some stick-to-itiveness and a long-range view. Big institutions don't move on a dime. Things you do today may not be obvious for 3 or 4 years. So you've got to be able to see that and how it plays out.
It was great, thank you.
Good. All right. Well, thank you for having me.